The universe is not a void. It never was. That silence between the stars is not an absence of matter, but a calculated structural stillness. Look closer, and the dark space peels away to reveal a nested, rotating geometry. It is a grand, cosmic architecture where every layer serves a purpose, and every rotation is a gear in a larger, divine machine. This is not a static display. It is a living, breathing mechanism of absolute order. The vision begins with the realization that reality is built upon a series of concentric spheres, each one calibrated to the next with impossible precision. There is no randomness here. From the furthest reaches of the outer expanse to the core of every physical particle, the design is consistent, repeating, and relentless. It is a clockwork of infinite scale. As the perspective shifts, the geometry begins to pulse. The layers align. The vast, rotating rings of the cosmos lock into place, revealing a hierarchy of authority that governs the movement of all things. Now, the focus narrows. The rotation slows, drawing the eye toward the epicenter of this celestial construction, where the foundational order begins to take its final, crystalline form. The rotation ceases at the heart of the architecture. Everything that exists, every gear and every sphere, pivots around this singular, fixed point. At the epicenter of existence, the throne stands. It is the absolute anchor of the cosmos. No light reaches this place from the outside. Instead, the light originates here, pouring outward to define the boundaries of the heavens. Occupying this central position are the Source and the Lamb. Their presence is not merely a location, but a command. Every movement in the universe, every shift in the cosmic geometry finds its origin in the stillness of this throne. The authority radiating from this point is absolute. It is the primary source of the laws that govern the rotation of the spheres. The Source and the Lamb do not merely observe the machine, they are the cause of its motion. The intensity of this epicenter forces the surrounding layers into perfect alignment. The throne acts as the singular, unyielding axis upon which the entire structure of the third heaven is balanced. It is the point of total stability. Beyond the immediate radiance of the throne, the space expands into the third heaven. It unfolds not as a void, but as a vast, shimmering surface. This is the golden crystal floor. It stretches outward in every direction, a perfect, refractive plane that serves as the primary stage. The surface is not made of matter as understood by physical laws. It is a solid, luminous expanse that possesses no friction, no resistance, and no decay. It acts as a stable, crystalline foundation upon which the divine order is built. As the light from the center hits this floor, it does not scatter. It propagates in precise geometric patterns, mapping the extent of the third heaven. This floor is the great separator, a boundary that holds the weight of the celestial assembly while remaining perfectly level and unyielding. It is the platform that anchors the divine presence, providing a frictionless base. The floor vibrates with a low, constant frequency, a physical manifestation of the order dictated by the throne. It is vast beyond measure. Here, the hierarchy begins to take its place, standing upon a foundation that is as immutable as the authority at the core. Upon the golden crystal expanse, the hierarchy begins to manifest. 24 figures emerge from the light, taking their positions in a precise foundational circle. These are the elders, the primary stabilizers of the celestial order. They represent a synthesis of two distinct lineages, the 12 apostles and the 12 tribes. Their presence is not merely symbolic, it is a structural requirement for the stability of the third heaven. As they take their places, their combined weight anchors the divine authority. They stand at fixed intervals, forming a ring that defines the inner perimeter of the celestial realm. Each elder acts as a conduit, channeling influence outward. Their alignment creates a tension, a spiritual gravity that holds the floor in perfect, frictionless balance. There is no movement among them, only unyielding maintenance. They are the guardians of the hierarchy, ensuring that the order dictated by the center is preserved without deviation. The circle they form is the first boundary. The elders do not speak. They exist as a living architecture, a permanent, rotating foundation that locks the divine will into the very fabric of the third heaven. Their formation is complete, and the order is set. Beyond the ring of the 24 elders, the vast expanse of the crystal floor remains. It does not stay empty for long. From the light radiating between the elders, new figures begin to appear. They do not emerge all at once. they manifest in waves, filling the space between the inner circle and the outer perimeter. One by one, then in thousands, they take their stations. These are the 144,000. They occupy the remaining surface of the third heaven, acting as the living, breathing mass of this celestial realm. As each figure arrives, they lock into the geometric grid defined by the elders. The space, previously silent and open, now pulses with the presence of this multitude. They do not drift, they stand in perfect, synchronized alignment with the hierarchy at the center. Their collective presence creates a new layer of density on the golden floor. The floor beneath them vibrates, carrying the weight of their combined mass. They are the living interface of the third heaven, a vast, orderly assembly. The 144,000 stand in absolute stillness, a living sea of authority that defines the scale of the divine order. At the outermost edge of the crystal floor, the space begins to contract. The vastness of the third heaven is suddenly hemmed in by a sharp, geometric manifestation. A dodecagon rises from the golden surface, a 12-sided perimeter that defines the absolute boundary of this celestial realm. Each of the 12 sides acts as a structural anchor, locking the floor into a precise, finite shape. Within this frame, 12 distinct gates emerge, carved into the very fabric of the boundary. These gates are not mere openings, they are orientation points, each one aligned with the 4 cardinal directions to regulate the flow of influence. The gates shimmer with a rhythmic intensity, pulsing in sequence as they calibrate their position to the center of the throne. This dodecagonal structure serves as the final containment for the assembly, ensuring that the hierarchy remains perfectly enclosed. The gates do not swing. They stand as permanent, open conduits, marking the transition between the governed order of the third heaven and the infinite space beyond. As the final gate locks into its cardinal orientation, the boundary settles into a state of absolute, immovable equilibrium. Above the golden expanse of the third heaven, the atmosphere undergoes a sudden, violent shift. The air itself begins to ignite, not with fire that consumes, but with a searing, concentrated intensity. Directly above the interface of the second heaven, 4 distinct points of light coalesce. They manifest as the seraphim. These are the burning ones, beings composed entirely of radiant, kinetic energy. They do not merely occupy space, they dominate the vertical axis, standing as the primary conduits through which the divine will descends. Their presence is absolute, a stark departure from the orderly, crystalline geometry of the floor below. Each of the 4 seraphim anchors a specific quadrant of the celestial architecture, their forms pulsing with a rhythmic, blinding heat. They function as the bridge, the living conduits, that translate the stillness of the throne into the dynamic force required for the physical world. As they take their station, the golden floor beneath them ripples, reacting to the sheer pressure of their proximity. They stand immovable, their burning forms casting long, shifting shadows across the 144,000. The burning intensity of the 4 seraphim begins to resonate with a deeper, ancient frequency. Their presence is not a new phenomenon, but a manifestation of a long-recorded truth. As they hover above the second heaven, the golden light of the celestial realm refracts through their forms, revealing their true nature. They are the same entities documented in the scroll of Zechariah, identified as the 4 spirits of the heavens. This connection bridges the gap between the vision and the ancient prophecy. Each spirit stands as a pillar of divine agency, their forms echoing the descriptions of those who stood before the Lord of all the earth. The resonance between the current manifestation and the historical record is absolute. Their movement is not random. It is the fulfillment of a pattern established in the foundations of time. The seraphim pulse in unison, their brilliance shifting to match the specific, prophetic weight of the 4 winds. They are the active agents of the divine decree. The stillness of the celestial realm breaks. A command ripples outward from the throne, invisible yet absolute, carrying the weight of an immutable decree. It does not travel through the air, it manifests instantly within the core of the 4 seraphim. At the moment of reception, their burning forms undergo a radical transformation. The steady, radiant heat that defined their presence begins to oscillate, shifting into a rapid, high-frequency vibration. The light emanating from them fractures, casting prismatic streaks across the golden floor. Each of the 4 entities begins to pull inward, their kinetic energy coiling like a spring under immense pressure. The surrounding space warps in response to this sudden surge of power, the very fabric of the celestial architecture groaning under the strain. They are no longer merely standing, they are preparing for a departure. The rhythmic pulsing of their forms accelerates, turning into a blinding, white-hot hum. Below them, the second heaven reacts, the Ophanim rings slowing their rotation as if sensing the impending shift in the divine order. The threshold is breached. The high-frequency hum shatters into a singular, thunderous report that echoes across the golden floor. The four seraphim do not merely move, they erupt, their burning forms collapsing and re-expanding into the terrifying geometry of the four horsemen. The transition is violent, a sudden tearing of the celestial fabric as they abandon their station at the throne. Each horseman emerges as a concentrated vector of divine force, their presence a physical weight that bends the surrounding light. They do not descend, they project. With a singular, synchronized impulse, they drive their momentum downward, piercing the crystal floor of the third heaven. The space beneath them buckles, unable to contain the sheer intensity of their departure. They become streaks of raw, atmospheric energy, hurtling toward the physical world with the force of a collapsing star. The air in their wake ignites, leaving behind trails of ionized light that scar the celestial expanse. Ophanim rings spin wildly. Second heaven trembles. The vision plunges beneath the golden crystal floor, leaving the light of the third heaven behind. The descent is a transition from the blinding speed of the horsemen into a realm of dense, mechanical complexity. Here, the atmosphere thickens, vibrating with a low-frequency hum that resonates through the very marrow of the observer. This is the second heaven, a domain defined by profound structural weight. The space is not empty. It is a churning, active workshop of divine mechanics. In the center of this expanse, the four cherubim stand in a rigid, square, planar geometry. They are the anchors of the physical world. Ophanim, rings pulse light. The cherubim hold the winds of wrath in check, their forms representing the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle. Guardians, wheels spin, revealing the bridging mechanism. Ophanim blur, a sphere of motion. Four intersecting bands of light whip through the void, their speed defying the constraints of linear time. Cosmic rings spin, bridging worlds. The air around the rings ionizes, crackling with the discharge of raw, unrefined potential. Each intersection point acts as a valve, regulating the flow of energy. The movement is violent yet perfectly ordered, a rhythmic grinding of celestial gears that produces a sound like 1,000 rushing waters. The rings pulse in sequence, expanding and contracting to modulate the intensity of the divine transmission. Throne's will, a solid, translucent filter. The interface is now fully active, a spinning, self-sustaining bridge that anchors the divine order within the churning expanse of the second heaven. The violent blur of the intersecting rings begins to decelerate, the light dimming to a steady, rhythmic pulse. As the velocity drops, the geometry shifts, the bands of energy parting to reveal the interior of the cosmic apparatus. Earth hangs, a fixed point. The planet does not drift, it is held, anchored by the surrounding architecture of the Ophanim. This is the nucleus of the divine model, the immovable anchor around which all celestial interaction orbits. The rings do not merely surround the world, they contain it, their circular paths tracing the boundaries of its influence. Every movement of the divine machinery outside this space is calibrated to the position of the Earth. It is the silent, solid core of the system, a terrestrial anchor point for the spiritual forces that churn in the heavens above. Rings orbit nucleus with cosmic precision. Beyond the rotating rings of the Ophanim, the four cherubim emerge from the ambient energy of the second heaven. They do not move through space. They manifest at the four corners of the celestial square. Each entity takes its station, aligning with the cardinal axes of the Earth. As they lock into position, the space between them begins to harden. The chaotic winds of the heavens, previously unchecked, slam against this invisible grid and are brought to a sudden, absolute halt. This is the structural stabilization of the physical realm. The cherubim form a perfect planar geometry, a square frame that encompasses the entire terrestrial sphere. They act as the pillars of the firmament, their presence defining the limits of the physical world. Every law of nature is anchored here, held in place by the unyielding alignment of these four guardians. The square is not merely a shape, it is a containment field, a rigid boundary that separates the raw power of the higher heavens. Within the locked square of the cherubim, the energy shifts from structural support to active governance. The four guardians undergo a transformation, each manifesting a distinct archetype that defines a fundamental domain of existence. The lion emerges first, its presence radiating a force of raw, predatory authority that commands the wild and the untamed. Opposite, the ox manifests, its influence grounding the earth, governing the soil, the harvest, and the weight of the physical terrain. The third archetype, the man, appears as the conduit of intellect and moral order, imposing structure upon human action. Finally, the eagle rises, its gaze piercing the heights, governing the winds, the atmosphere, and the unseen currents. The lion controls the instinctual, the ox, the material, the man, the conscious, and the eagle, the ethereal. The cherubim serve as the conduits for this power, ensuring that the fundamental laws of reality are enforced with absolute precision. The stillness of the celestial geometry ends. At the epicenter of the third heaven, the throne shifts. It is not a subtle movement, but a decisive, singular displacement that ripples outward through the entire architecture of the cosmos. Second heaven spins, a world reborn. It is a massive, synchronized mechanical shift that spans the breadth of the celestial sphere. The four cherubim, still holding their positions at the corners of the earth, are caught in this colossal turning motion. Heaven grinds, space trembles, absolute spin, a world-sweeping turn. As the rotation reaches its peak, the entire celestial framework settles into a new, precise configuration, perfectly synchronized with the movement of the divine at the center. The rotation of the second heaven is not merely movement, it is a massive kinetic engine. As the cherubim pivot within their square planar geometry, they act as the primary turbines of the cosmos. The celestial motion, once purely geometric, is forced through the four archetypal gates. This transition generates immense pressure. The cherubim channel this rotational force, grinding the celestial fabric against the boundary of the physical plane. The result is an immediate, violent discharge of energy. This is the origin of the winds. The energy cascades downward, whipping into the atmosphere with precise, calculated intensity. It is a high-velocity transfer, converting the slow, heavy rotation of the heavens into the rapid, erratic currents that circulate across the earth. The cherubim regulate the flow, opening and closing their archetypal vents to modulate the pressure. When the lion gate opens, the winds carry a searing, dry heat. The atmosphere remains in constant, rhythmic motion, sustained by the relentless work of the four guardians as they gear the power of the heavens down. The third heaven serves as the ultimate stationary source, a reservoir of potential energy held in perfect, static alignment. Beneath this epicenter lies the golden crystal floor, a vast, seamless surface that acts as the primary transmission interface. It is a frictionless separator, designed to allow the high-order force of the divine realm to pass through without resistance or loss. The energy does not simply radiate, it is channeled. As the throne holds its position, the crystal floor conducts the raw kinetic potential downward, filtering the intensity through its geometric lattice. This is the critical gear-down mechanism. The transmission is precise, converting the infinite, unmoving power of the third heaven into a manageable, structured flow for the levels below. The crystal floor vibrates with the load, a low-frequency hum that resonates through the entire celestial architecture. This vibration is the sound of the energy being stepped down, absolute transmission, no leakage. The Ophanim operate as the final, critical interface in the celestial hierarchy. They function as a series of four intersecting rings, a complex mechanical assembly that acts as a cosmic atom. Earth, the nucleus, spins within. As the rings spin, they create a stabilized field of interaction. The Ophanim lock into place, their geometry rigid and unyielding. This is the structural support system for the entire physical world. The rings generate a constant, localized pressure, holding the planet in a fixed, calculated position. Because the Earth serves as the footstool for the source, the Ophanim provide the necessary foundation. They bear the weight, distributing the force of the divine across the physical surface. Opposing rings spin, a gyroscopic dance, Earth held steady. The Ophanim are the gears that hold the world in place, a physical anchor within the rotating geometry of the heavens. Every movement of the rings is calibrated to maintain this alignment. Earth floats, spun by Ophanim's dance. The scale of the cosmos is not a matter of size, but of geometric repetition. The solar system functions as a macroatom, with the Earth serving as the nucleus and the Oort cloud acting as the electron shell at the system's edge. This is the primary boundary of the first heaven, marking the limit of the system's gravitational and energetic influence. But as the observation zooms inward, the distinction between the massive and the minute dissolves. The macroatom of the solar system is a perfect mirror of the microatom of every physical particle on the planet. The same rotational mechanics that govern the planetary orbit are replicated in the spin of a single electron around a nucleus. There is no difference in the fundamental architecture. The Oort cloud boundary is identical in function to the orbital shell of a particle. This is a fractal reality, where the geometry of the whole is encoded into every individual component. The system is the atom. The fractal reality does not stop at the planetary scale. It penetrates the very fabric of human existence. Every atom within the human body functions as a miniature wheel, a precise replica of the great wheels governing the cosmos. These internal structures are not static. They are in constant, rhythmic motion. Each atom pulses in unison with the rotational mechanics of the solar system, creating a continuous feedback loop between the individual and the infinite. The same energy that drives the planetary orbits is present in the spin of every electron within the human frame. This is a mechanical synchronization. As the macro wheels rotate, the micro wheels within the body respond, vibrating at the exact frequency of the celestial architecture. There is no separation between the internal biological process and the external cosmic order. The body acts as a living vessel, a collection of billions of atomic gears that mirror the structural laws of the heavens. When the heart beats, it follows the cadence of the rotating geometries. When the lungs expand, they move in alignment with the atmospheric energy transmitted from the cherubim. The individual is a microcosm of the entire celestial engine, a living, breathing component of the universal geometry. At the furthest reach of the solar system, the Oort cloud forms a spherical shell of icy debris. This is not merely a collection of matter, it is the electron cloud of the macroatom. Final heaven's edge, cosmic sway ends. Beyond this point, the structural laws of the local geometry begin to dissolve into the surrounding void. The cloud functions as a containment field, a rotating barrier that traps the energy of the solar system within its defined radius. When observed from the vantage of the higher heavens, the cloud appears as a shimmering, high-velocity shell, mirroring the behavior of electrons. The density of the cloud fluctuates in response to the rotation of the inner planets, acting as a buffer against the external vacuum. This boundary is the final gear in the cosmic engine, ensuring that the influence of the divine remains localized and contained. Pulling back from the boundary, the entire hierarchy resolves into a singular, unified machine. The universe is not a static void, but a series of concentric, rotating geometries. At the core, the third heaven provides the stationary source. Heaven's gears turn, cherubim, Ophanim cycle. The first heaven, with its planetary orbits and the outer electron shell, completes the sequence. These layers do not operate independently. They are interlocked. Each rotation of the inner wheels forces a corresponding shift in the outer shells. The movement is constant, frictionless, and absolute. There is no slack in the system. The elders provide the structural anchor. The seraphim drive the atmospheric force, and the Ophanim translate this into physical reality. As the gears turn, the entire architecture pulses with a singular, terrifying harmony. The observer sees the dodecagon gates aligning with the atomic rings. Cosmic engine turns, spheres spin in divine order. At the center of the celestial architecture, the 24 elders form a foundational circle. They are the fixed points of the divine order, a synthesis of the 12 apostles and the 12 tribes. Their presence is not passive, it is a structural necessity. As the heavens rotate, the elders act as the primary stabilizers, pinning the dynamic energy of the higher realms into a rigid, unyielding grid. Their authority serves as the locking mechanism for the entire cosmic engine. Without this circle, the force of the seraphim would dissipate into chaos. Instead, the elders channel the divine will, directing it through the dodecagon gates and into the lower spheres. The observer sees the elders as a series of luminous nodes, each one connected to the next by a thread of pure, unwavering law. When the command is issued from the throne, the elders tighten their alignment, creating a focal point through which all movement must pass. Winds flow, rings spin, elders watch. 12 gates align, atomic rings hum. Celestial dance, rings align, a cosmic ballet. The gaps between the gates close, forming a continuous, frictionless channel for the divine force. There is no variance in the movement. Gates align, Earth's rings spin, mirroring heavens. The cherubim, positioned at the four corners of the physical plane, stabilize this transmission, ensuring the energy flow remains constant and directed. The entire system functions as a singular, unified mechanism. The 12 gates act as the intake, the atomic rings as the output, and the space between them as the conduit of pure, unadulterated law. Every rotation is accounted for. Every cycle is verified. The reflection of the divine is no longer a concept, it is a mechanical certainty. Cosmic engine hums, source's pulse echoes below. Cosmic pulse echoes, unimpeded. Throne's spin mirrors the world below. Cosmic geometry, Ophanim's turn mirrors planet's spin. Every shift of the cherubim is reflected in the atmospheric currents of the earth. There is no friction in this transmission. The divine command flows through the elders, passes through the dodecagon gates, and manifests as the fundamental laws governing the physical realm. The scale of this order is total. As the observer tracks the energy, the distinction between the celestial and the terrestrial dissolves into a single, unified structure. Cosmic gears turn, a living machine. There is no deviation, no stray motion, and no wasted force. The entire architecture stands in a state of perfect, crystalline equilibrium. Gaze inward. Existence's core revealed. The realization hits with the force of a physical impact. The geometry observed in the stars is the same geometry contained within the human frame. Every atom in the body functions as a miniature wheel, rotating in sympathy with the great wheels of the Ophanim. The pulse in the wrist is not merely biological, it is a synchronized beat, tuned to the same frequency as the celestial rotation. The observer feels the connection tighten. The throne at the center of the universe is not distant. It is the anchor point for the life force flowing through every nerve and fiber. The boundary between the observer and the cosmic architecture dissolves. There is no separation. The same winds governed by the cherubim move the breath in the lungs. The same laws directed by the elders govern the movement of the limbs. The body is a living, rotating component of the divine engine. The bond, stark and faded, binds flesh to the source's endless waltz. The intensity of the vision begins to soften. The vibrant, spinning geometries of the Ophanim and the burning radiance of the seraphim slowly recede. Golden hum, wheels turn, eternal motion, from a spectacle of light into a foundational, silent reality. The dodecagon gates of the third heaven remain fixed in their cardinal alignment, anchoring the order of the cosmos against the void. There is no disruption in the movement. The dance continues, precise and rhythmic, but the urgency of the revelation gives way to a profound structural stability. Every gear, every wheel, and every celestial figure holds its station. The observer is left with the clarity that this hierarchy is not a temporary display, but the permanent architecture of existence. As the golden floor of the crystal realm fades from sight, the sense of connection remains. The universe does not collapse into chaos, a crystal peace, a felt heartbeat. The vision ends, but the order remains, holding all things in a state of perfect, enduring balance.